it didn't take that long for me to come back this time around. And even though that doesn't prove much, it proves that I would like to think it proves that I really do want to bring the momentum back for this series. And that's why I am doing, I am back again already with another edition of Let's Play WWF 2001, also known as Let's Play The Invasion. And now we are back with SmackDown, which is a follow-up to Raw in some regards because of the King of the Ring, but actually, it's not a follow-up to Raw in any way, other than the hardcore title match, but it is a continuation in more of a regard because we are continuing to build to the King of the Ring tournament, which is the King of the Ring pay-per-view, which will be held June week 3 next month. We already know that Chris Benoit will challenge for the WWF title once more, but this time it will be 1-on-1 against Stone Cold Steve Austin for the belt. And also, we found out on Raw that the Brothers of Destruction want their opportunity to face Edge and Christian for the tag titles, but the one question remains: after Monday Night Raw, what happened to The Undertaker, and will the Brothers of Destruction be able to compete in 3 weeks at King of the Ring for the tag team titles, or will their opportunity have gone up in flames? No pun intended. But now, let's jump into Thursday Night SmackDown to find out what happens, what else happened this week in the WWF. On the pre-show, we see Billy Kidman go up against Mark Jindrak, and I'm just gonna say this, that both these guys have come along with the WCW. The only difference is Kidman's a babyface and Jindrak's a heel. So even though in real life, when Kidman debuted, I believe X-Pac was the heel and he was the babyface, I am playing this game as in, basically, I'm playing it as they're gonna be all WCW alumni, but that doesn't mean that all of them are going to be heels. Because much like when the invasion started, and even though the entire invasion were heels, Rob Van Dam was getting babyface reactions. But either way, this is a pre-show match just like I've been doing with WCW alumni, as Kidman gets his first win as a member of WWF. And now we move to the first segment of the show with The Rock and Big Show. See, about 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago even, The Rock and the Big Show started a feud, basically as a way to get both of them working consistently on television, specifically for The Rock, because Rock was doing nothing. And even though his feud with Austin had just ended, I felt like having The Rock do nothing for any extended period of time was a waste of The Rock's talent, and that's why I scraped together a feud with The Big Show. Even if this is a short-term feud, it still has the meaning of a feud. And yes, if you're wondering, I do know that in real life at this time The Rock was gone, filming, I believe, The Scorpion King, but I'll just say this, that following his feud with The Big Show, he will disappear for a little bit due to the filming of the movie, because I'm going to play it as real life, and it will help with the booking of The Rock and also the booking of the invasion. So just keep that in mind. But either way, we kick off the show with The Rock, The Big Show, and William Regal, as Big Show wants a rematch against The Rock, and William Regal announces that the match will take place, but the date is to be determined. As William Regal says that he wants to keep it under his cap as a way to keep them being Big Show and The Rock guessing. But either way, we move to the third King of the Ring tournament match. For the third first round match in the King of the Ring tournament with Steve Blackman against Stevie Richards. And Steven Richards continues the successful run for Right to Censor as Stevie moves to the next round of the King of the Ring tournament. And Stevie also debuted a new power spot to showcase his ability. And it's going to help his psychology. Michael Cole and Taz discuss what happened on Raw with Vince. And if you don't know because you didn't watch the video, number one, go back and watch Raw. And number two, Vince actually acknowledged the WCW alumni and actually told the fans what he got from the sale and just kept bragging about having all the power now and the ability to say to anybody he wanted, "You're fired." But now we continue with SmackDown with a triple threat hardcore match. You gotta wonder if this puts one of these guys in a better standing to face the new hardcore champion, Test, at a later date. Speaking of Test, apparently Just Incredible can't do hardcore matches. Speaking of Test, though, Brooklyn Brawler actually attacks Test backstage, or tries to, and Brooklyn, the Brawler, does have a referee with him, and is trying to, well, for lack of a better word, he's trying to win the hardcore title. But Test fights him off, and basically gets Brawler away from him enough, and beats him down. And Test ends the segment with the hardcore title. But this is just the start of, well, basically, I don't really necessarily remember what my thought process was behind Test winning the hardcore title, because I know Test, when I put him in a hardcore match, it's going to come up that Test isn't good in hardcore matches. I just know that's what's going to happen. But I think, if I remember, the reason why I gave Test the hardcore title is because he's 26 years old, and I believe that he has intense potential to be something. And even if you say, oh, the hardcore title means nothing at this time, why are you going to give him the hardcore title? Because it'll put him on TV. It'll give him segments like this where he can fight people off and show that he's a badass, and show that he can fight through the numbers. It's that, like, maybe I'm hoping that this could get him an aura about him, that he could become something more than what he is, or what he was at this time, which I think was just somebody from WWF that jumped ship to the to the Alliance, which in my opinion was a waste. Because that's the best you have for a 26-year-old prospect. I mean, yes, I'm not gonna lie, putting him in a segment with the Brooklyn Brawler isn't the best way to make him seem like a badass, and make him seem like somebody who has like an aura about him that he can fight through. It doesn't matter the number, he's always gonna win, he's always gonna come out on top. Like, I don't mean a superhero, I mean like a guy who's better served in a brawl than a mat wrestling match. You know what I mean? Like a Bradshaw type thing, or a Bob Holly. I mean, yes, those guys aren't comparable. Bradshaw, he's pretty comparable, but Bob Holly, meh. But I'm not even saying Test is going to be world champion, because the question should be, can Test hold a candle to Triple H, The Rock, Steve Austin, etc., or is Test just a little step below? But I am saying that maybe Test could be Intercontinental Champion. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of the King of the Ring, though, we move forward with Eddie Guerrero going up against K-Quick, and Eddie Guerrero punches his ticket to the King of the Ring as he wins his first round match against K-Quick. But that's not all, because following the match, Eddie picks up a microphone, but before Eddie can start talking, Matt and Jeff Hardy come out to the ring, and Matt asks Eddie for a title shot at his European title because he wants a shot to see if he can do what Jeff couldn't. He doesn't say that, but it's insinuated. And I'm just gonna say this once again. Number one, I forgot to to cancel Eddie's heel turn, but this is not my way of saying that the Hardys are breaking up. I have no intention to break up the Hardys. It's just that for the last year and a half, the same people have challenged for the tag team titles, and I'm trying to get new people in the tag team title picture, even if it means having the Hardys challenge for a singles gold. Speaking of tag team title picture, this match didn't end the way it was supposed to because the game sometimes fucks up and doesn't let you do it the way you wanted. The reason why that thing on the bottom is there is because the right to censor was supposed to come out and cost him the match. Specifically Val Venus. I know this because I booked this earlier today when Val Venus, and I booked Val Venus specifically because I wanted to be where, since the feud started with Val Venus and the Good Father against Bubba and Devon, I want that to be the focus of the feud, not necessarily Stevie Richards, because Stevie's not in the tag team matches. The Good Father and Val Venus are. And to prove that the way I wanted to end the match didn't happen, why else would Val Venus and the Good Father be in the next segment if they weren't at ringside to for the finish? I didn't just have them show up, I had them at ringside because they were there, because they cost the Dudleys the match. So fuck you, game, for not letting me end the match the way I wanted. Now the announcers hype Kurt Angle and Jericho for next week for the Intercontinental title. Once again, if you missed Raw, please feel free to go back and watch it. But last week, on Raw, William Regal made the match official after Kurt Angle demanded an opportunity to face a rematch against Jericho for the Intercontinental title. And William Regal accepted it, but made one stipulation for the match, and that is that next week it will be Jericho versus Angle for the Intercontinental title, but no holds barred. Yes, if you're watching this and, are still watching WWE today, I'm trying to book this very similar to Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles, but also with the idea that I don't really want to put the Intercontinental title on Kurt Angle, and I just really want to keep the belt on Jericho. So, yeah. But either way, the feud will continue this Monday night on Raw with a no-holds-barred match for the Intercontinental title. And now we move to the 6th King of the Ring qualifying match, or opening round match for the King of the Ring, as Rikishi goes up against Chavo Guerrero. I know some may say, oh, you're burying your Cruiserweight champion, why the hell are you doing that, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, number one, it's a somewhat competitive match going 7 minutes, And number two, Rikishi hasn't really won much. So that's the reason why I'm giving Rikishi the short win, I guess, to advance in the tournament. And also, Chavo has won a lot since debuting in the company, so one loss isn't going to kill him. But now we move backstage with the APA standing by with Kevin Kelly, and Kevin asks the APA why exactly they wanted this interview time, and the APA go off on right to censor and tell him that they picked the wrong people to try and help. To try and help. And they stuck their nose where it didn't belong, because now they have two pissed off boys right upon them, ready for a fight and looking to kick some ass. So Val, Stevie, Goodfather, watch your back, boys, because you pissed off the APA, and that's something you just don't do. So now the feud took an interesting twist, because the APA, I'm not going to say the APA are involved, but the APA have a vested interest in their old rivals. Once again, after Val and the Goodfather helped them pick up the win over the Dudleys. And now we move to the main event as the Big Show comes out for to commentate for this one, as The Rock faces Test. And fortunately the match was actually pretty good. Unfortunately, Test is a little bit off from being a main event talent, and if I ever wanted to push him to the world title, he would need to get a lot better. A lot better. Because there's no way a 66 in-ring performance could be justified to compete against an 100. And I know that The Rock is tremendously popular at this time. Austin is tremendously popular at this time. But the fact of the matter is that it weighs on people, and you look at Kane gets 80s, Taker gets 80s, Hunter gets 80s, Benoit, Jericho, Angle, they all get 80s and 90s. So it's like, you need to get at least an 80 to be able to be featured in the main event. And by the way, the Big Show actually does get 80s, so don't throw him in there saying that he doesn't. He does actually get an 80. I remember from his match with The Rock. But the fact of the matter is, Test is very far away from being somewhat of a top talent, and I would say that the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys, and Edge and Christian are closer to being moved up the card than Test. But either way, the show ends with the Big Show coming up from the commentary position and attacking The Rock, hitting him with a chokeslam, and leaving the fans with the sight of The Rock down on the ground, down on the mat, with the Big Show standing over him with that look, actually the same look that he has in that picture, and knowing that the Big Show got the last laugh on the Great One. But either way, another successful show, not as good as Raw was. Raw got in the 80s, but as always, SmackDown is a little bit lower. But either way, I think it was a solid show, and even though it really didn't move forward any of the major storylines The Rock and Big Show really isn't a major storyline. But even though it didn't move forward any of the real major storylines, it did move forward some of the minor ones, like Eddie and the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Supply and Demand, as well as The Rock and the Big Show. But either way, this has been another episode of SmackDown. I'm very excited about Raw because of Angle versus Jericho for the IC title, and also being able to give an update on The Undertaker following the attack and the stretcher job from Monday Night Raw that we saw take place from The Undertaker. and also the continuation of the Dudley's APA supply and demand / right to censor feud to see where this goes from here. But with that being said, let me know down in the comment section below if you like the differentiation between Raw and SmackDown, and also let me know down in the comment section below if you have any ideas for future bookings of top talent like Triple H and The Rock and others. Let me know down in the comment section below, because as always, feedback is more than welcomed and appreciated. But if you don't want to leave a comment, you can always leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. Till next time. Later.